I'm Felicity Hughes. I am a registered midwife and an internationally board certified lactation consultant. And I'm here today to talk to you about breastfeeding. Now, before we start, I would like to just give you a bit of background about me. So I am a mum of 4. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. I actually started off my professional life as a primary teacher and very happily taught lots and lots of kids for many, many years. And then I had my first baby and everything changed. So I didn't want to go back into teaching. I really wanted to become a midwife. So after the birth of my second, I took the plunge and I followed my heart and I started studying to be a midwife. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I had 2 more babies during the course, and I really immersed myself in my studies. And I then I trained at Royal North Shore, which was fantastic. And then after I qualified, I got a job at Westmead, and that was amazing. I learned so much, and I really I realized actually, yes, pregnancy and birth is so very important, and we need good support, and we need, very experienced professionals. However, the postpartum period, when you've had your baby and you go home, I really felt that that's the time. It certainly was for me. That was when I needed somebody there to help me and to guide me and to say, you're doing a good job, to listen. And so that's really why I think I started studying to be a lactation consultant. And a few years ago, I founded Motherhood Matters, and I now work in my own private practice as a lactation consultant in Sydney, doing home visits. I also do virtual consults for families that are outside of the area in Sydney that I cover, and I love it. And I love being able to spend the amount of time that each individual needs. So yeah, I think that's about the size of it for how I got to where I'm at. In terms of today, I would really like to go through the basics, because I think the basics are overlooked often. And it's good to get off on a calm and confident foot. It doesn't have to be the right one. There's many, breastfeeding looks different to every individual. So there is no one correct, right way to do it. It's about finding your way and building your confidence so that you can listen to yourself. People say, follow your gut, but sometimes you can't find your gut, and you don't know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So I would like to go through the basics and why babies do what they do. I find when you understand why they are doing what they're doing, it really makes it much easier to deal with in those challenging times, because you're going to have them. And if you've had your baby already, you know that. And if you haven't, don't be afraid. It is a matter of knowing that baby language and knowing what's normal and why they're doing what they're doing. So I want to talk about that. I also want to really focus in on attachment. Attachment is so very, very important. It is the beginning of digestion. So if we can get that milk going in well, then the rest of the process has a much better shot of working smoothly. So we're going to look at oral function. And what are some signs that things perhaps aren't going the way you want them to go? And then I'd like to finish off with some troubleshooting of what to do if sometimes things start off really well and then they go a little bit pear-shaped. Or you might feel that, the wheels may not have flown off, but they may be a little bit wobbly and you're not quite sure what to do. So I want to talk about some of those things and places you can go and people you can see to help you. So I think that really sums me up, and so let's get started. Okay, so in terms of the basics, the research shows us that baby-led attachment is associated with more positive results, less pain, easier and faster establishment of breastfeeding. And that's great, that is fantastic. However, for some babies, it doesn't work because they don't know what they're doing and they may be a little bit stunned from birth. They may be a bit sleepy. They may not be very interested. And so it's good to know what to do if that baby-led attachment doesn't quite work. So what I'm talking about when I say baby-led is letting the baby literally lead the way. So not doing the supported positions of bringing the baby to the breast and the breast to the baby, more in terms of having the baby on your chest, supported between your breasts and you holding their little bottom and letting them find their way with their little signposts that they have, their reflexes on their cheeks that guide them right or left, and then the one here that tells them to open. So in an ideal world, a baby is born onto mum's chest and the feel of your skin will stimulate them. The scent will stimulate them. Scent is a big one. It's really important. So they will bob around and they'll brush against your skin and they'll go one direction more so than the other. They might initially at the start be a little bit unsure of where they're going and they'll bob around a little bit, but once they start to smell that milk, they will start to head down, either left or right, depending which one is more stimulated. And then once they get down there, this one here is meant for that nipple to brush as they're bobbing their head around. The nipple, they'll stimulate the nipple to become more erect and they will brush against that part of the nipple and the areola, and that will encourage them to gape, to open their mouth wide. And then they'll start doing more of the bobbing around and they'll start to use their little hands. Now this one is really important because I think we've all been there if you have fed a baby, if you've already had your baby, and their hands seem to get in the way. Like, oh, for goodness sake, move your hands. Their hands are so important, and I think this is where it's really, really helpful to know why. So every baby, when they're born, all of these reflexes that they have in terms of that moro that they stick their hand out like that, that's to stop them from falling off. It's also to help them with breastfeeding. That walking reflex that they have, that's to help with the chest crawl, so that they can brace against our nice squishy tummies. When you've just had a baby, you've got that nice squishy tummy, and the baby can brace with their feet against that and propel themselves up the chest to get to the breast. Then they'll flail their little arms out and they're looking for the nipple, and they'll hook on with their little sharp claws. Don't know why it has to be sharp, but anyway, hook on with their little claws, and then they'll bring their mouth to their hand, and they'll chew and suck on their hand, and then they'll move their hand away, and this is if we don't interrupt them. They'll move their hand away and they'll start sucking at the nipple, and they might bob around a little bit more, and it will take time. It's very normal for it to take time. We all talk about the golden hour after birth, but I think from a baby's point of view, it really should be the golden 2 or 3 hours, because some babies, most babies, need time. And because of the system that we have, and it's a very good system, but because of the system, we don't always have that amount of time for very good reasons. But the baby doesn't know that. And what can happen sometimes, if somebody walked in now and interrupted me, I would talk to them and I'd be able to come back and talk to you again without really dropping a beat. Babies can't do that. They don't know how to come back. So if that process of that chest crawl and then the rooting and then the gape and the searching for the hand, for the nipple, if that's interrupted, they don't know where to go. It's like you go to bed in your bed and waking up in the garden blindfolded. You know you're not in your bed anymore, but you can't see where you are. You can have a feel around, but it would be quite stressful, I imagine. You probably would push away from wherever you are and become distressed. It's the same thing from a baby's point of view, a newborn baby. If we interrupt that flow, that process, we need to help them to come back to the start again. So if your baby's arching their back and pushing away from the breast, they might be saying to you, help me, I don't know where I am. I thought I was at Chatswood, but I'm actually in Lidcombe and I don't know how to get back to Chatswood. So, we want to bring them back to the center and let them start that process from the beginning, because then they'll go, oh, I get it. That's right. I was trying to feed. A new baby may be very hungry, but after a few attempts, they get tired. So they have a little power nap. And we can understand that as, oh, they're not hungry. And then they start to cry again because they remember, actually, no, I am hungry. And they've had a little nap and they want to start again. But they're still in Lidcombe and they don't know how to get back to Chatswood. So what we want to do is we want to reset, put them back in the middle, back between your breasts, hand on their bottom, and just give them time. Give them a moment to work out what they're doing and let them follow their reflexes, follow their instincts to find the breast again. The more that you can encourage and support them to do that, the faster that they work out the process. They lay little signposts out for themselves, the scent. So the more you can help them to support them to do it, the better it is in the long run. Now, we don't, unfortunately, live, well, depends on what we're talking about, but we don't live in a village anymore. We don't live around the campfire where we've got, hours and hours to get breastfeeding right. We don't live like that anymore. So sometimes we do need to support them and we do need to sort of hurry the process up a little bit. So you can do that, but if you do it in a way where you're still respecting their process, then you're going to have a better experience and they're going to have a better experience, and that's going to help move you along that path of successfully establishing feeding. So that looks like keeping them on your skin. If they're getting upset, don't pull them away and hold them out here and go, what are you doing? Move them up under your chin so that they are still smelling you. They've got that body contact and they don't feel vulnerable. Babies, we want to keep their fight, flight, freeze down as low as we can so that they're not feeling like they need to. Babies can only really do one thing at a time. So if they're in a fight, flight state or a freeze state, they're not going to be able to feed. So we want to keep them close to you. So slide them up, let them calm, wait for that drop in. It might not be silence, but you listen out and hear that little drop in how they're crying. And when you hear that drop, slide them back down again. So you're cutting out the middle road of them having to find their way, but you're still giving them that experience of moving down the chest and finding the nipple. So in terms of their hands can be very, very difficult in the early days. So what we want to do is we want to plant them on the chest. We don't want to take them away because then that's that blindfold again. These are their signposts. This is what tells them where to go and where to find that nipple. So we don't want to take it away entirely. Try and keep the baby on your chest and put their hands on your skin so that you can hold their hand on your skin. Let them touch the nipple and then just move their hand to the side. Keep them in a chest to chest position so that they can have their hands there, and it keeps them calm and centered and they know, there's the nipple, and off they go. It takes time, so don't worry or don't panic if you've done it 5 times it's not working. That's normal. That's really, really normal. Every feed is another little step closer. Breastfeeding teaches breastfeeding. So hold those little hands close and let them lie on your chest. Remember, chest to chest, we don't want to have any space between. Now, if your bub is one of those little ones that really needs a bit of help and you can't do baby-led feeding because they're sliding off, they're coming on, off, on, off, on, off. You don't feel that they're really getting those swallows, all of those sorts of things. If you're feeling like that, then what you can do is more of a supported. So you do all of the same things, but when they get there, you're going to help to bring them to the breast. Baby to breast always, never. It's very tempting to lean over and try and look what we're doing, but lean back because that is really helpful for the baby. That secures and stabilizes them on your chest. And then they can, remember they only do one thing at a time. So if you are stabilizing them and really assisting them to be stable, then they can do more of what we want them to do. Attachment is a two-person job. 50% you, 50% the baby. Sucking and swallowing, that's all baby. You don't really have much control over that in that moment. There are certain things that we can do to improve it, but in terms of division of responsibility, the suck and swallow is the baby. So we want to put them in a position where they can do their best and they can function in an optimal way. So that is about that chest to chest. Keep that the chest contact that I was talking about. Really keep them close and have it so that they don't have to think about anything except feeding. Now, if you are supporting them and you're bringing them to you, there's many, many different ways that we can help them if they're not able to do that baby-led attachment. And things change, things can start off looking like the baby's not interested, and then, as breastfeeding teaches breastfeeding, once they get going and once they have a few successful feeds, things can really change quite quickly. So if things aren't going the way you want them to go, then what you can do is you can shape your breast just a little bit. Think about the way that the way the baby will be going on. We don't want to shape the breast this way if they're then coming on that way. So we want to shape the way that makes it easier for them to get on. It's really important that you do the least amount. Really want the path of least resistance. We want the least amount of fuss. So the less that you can do, the better. Now, in terms of once that baby's on, that suck and swallow, if that baby is not sucking and swallowing effectively, then it's going to potentially lead to some challenges. So we want to really make sure that that baby is on well. When I say on well, what does that actually mean? The latch looks good. And it might look good. That's great. However, that's only part of it. And it's a very, very small part of it because it's more about how it feels than how it looks. I'm going to show you some pictures of lots of different babies latched on at the breast. Some of these babies would be feeding very effectively and some of them will not. But I bet you that all of these babies, all of their mums were told that their latch looked good. I don't tend to ask women what the latch looks like. I more want to know how it feels. So when you're feeding your baby, if things aren't going the way you want them to go, or you feel like there's something just not quite right, really focus on how it feels. I'm not talking about just painful or not painful. I'm talking about what sensation, break it right down to, are you feeling pulling? Are you feeling more of an up and down? Are you feeling biting or chomping? Is it really tense? That little baby is pushing hard. Are they sucking hard enough to pull paint off a wall? What does it feel like? That will tell us way more than what it looks like. There are definitely some telltale signs of when you watch a baby feed that tell me that the attachment, that oral function is not where we want it to be. Now that can be for a variety of reasons. I'm sure you've all heard about tongue tie. That is just one of the reasons or one of the issues that can be at play. It's not the only one. And sometimes things look like a tongue tie, but they're really not. Other times it is a tongue tie, but it doesn't look like it. So attachment is tricky at times. So it's really important that you get someone to help. If you feel like things aren't right, if it's hurting to yourself, even if somebody tells you the latch looks great, I still want you to go and get somebody to have a look, have a feel, ask you how it feels. Have a look in that baby's mouth, have a feel in that baby's mouth and assess their suck, swallow and breathe. Because attachment is so important. Often there are a whole range of things going on, and when you fix that attachment, the other things settle down as well. So it's really, I can't stress to you enough, so many things start with that attachment. So I'm going to show you some pictures now of babies latched on, and then we'll have a chat. So, what did you think? There were quite a range. Some had their lips drawn right up, some were in tight lines. Whole range of different things that these babies were doing. Now, what I want to see is a baby that looks almost like they have bonded, that the cheeks have bonded with the breast. And you can see just nice, smooth cheeks, that chin in nice and deep. Think about what you do when you go to have a drink from a glass of water. You don't stick it here. You don't put it here and turn your head. You equally don't hold it over there. If you're drinking, your chin leads the way. It's the same thing with the baby. We want Bub to lead with their chin, to reach up. You think about those newborn reflexes. Here's the open button. So that gape, that allows the baby to open their mouth wide. And if your baby's not opening their mouth wide, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. If they're not opening their mouth wide, we want to find out why. Instead of saying, oh, the baby's lazy, a bit sleepy, they might be a bit sleepy, but they're never ever lazy. I have never come across a baby that goes, yeah, I'm not really interested in feeding. Don't worry about it. Or, yeah, I'm just not feeling like a strong sense of drive or purpose today to feed. I really need to talk to someone about my work ethic. You know, babies aren't lazy. They're just not. They can be a range of things, but they're never lazy. So if your baby is not opening their mouth and they're being stimulated effectively, then we want to find out why. And I really encourage you to do some investigations. What we want to see is we want to see that asymmetrical. We want to see the chin in nice and deep, the nose just brushing. We want the cheeks to have equal contact. So if your baby is reaching up and bringing that nipple in, placing that nipple where we want them to place it, then they're going to have a much better chance of stimulating the milk supply and also being stimulated themselves to suck effectively if they're able to. Now, if we are putting them in the very best position and we're supporting them the very best way that we can and things aren't working, get some help, okay? It's not you. And don't let anyone tell you it is you. In terms of what is a well-applied little baby, I'm going to show you some pictures now, and I want you to have a think in terms of how different they look to the ones I showed you the first time. So could you see the fullness of those cheeks? There's no little dimples. There's no lines here showing any sort of tension. See how my chin, my cheeks here, and I start to get lines here when I tighten my mouth in different ways. So we don't want to see, dimples are very cute, don't get me wrong, but not when you're breastfeeding. We don't want to see any dimples. Breastfeeding should really be quiet. You should hear the little as they're swallowing. If you hear any gulping, whistling, clicking, any of those sorts of things, we want to follow up on that. So in terms of oral function, we want a coordinated suck, swallow and breathe. Some babies will do a rapid suck, 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 suck to start with to get that milk flowing. And then they'll settle into more of a suck, swallow, suck, swallow, suck, swallow, suck, swallow. Some babies will go suck, suck, swallow. But what we don't want to hear is we don't want to see or hear a baby go suck, 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 gulp, gulp, suck. That's what we call an uncoordinated, or I've forgotten what we call it, disorganized. There you go, mental blank for a moment. Yeah, an uncoordinated suck, swallow, breathe, that means something is going on. So it doesn't mean there's a catastrophic problem, it just needs attention. And we want to find out why. It's really important to find out the why, because if you find out the why, then you can fix it, you can address it. Much rather that than just sticking a Band-Aid on it. So all of these tools that we have for breastfeeding are great when they're used at the right time for the right amount of time. So if there is something going on in your breastfeeding journey and your breastfeeding relationship, instead of just sticking a nipple shield on or dealing with it, ask for help. Get your attachment looked at. Get someone to assess that suck, swallow, breathe. What I want to see is I want to see a nice rhythmical rolling of that milk. I want to see those swallows. When a baby is swallowing well, you can see it. You will see a drop in the chin and a pause. And you can often see that bolus of milk move down the throat. So we really shouldn't hear the baby breathing so much. So obviously, some babies are a little bit noisy in their breathing, and that's okay, but it shouldn't be the main event. If you are really noticing your baby's breathing, watch those swallows and see, is my baby sucking in an uncoordinated or disorganized way? There are some great YouTubes of ultrasounds of babies swallowing, of babies breastfeeding. And I really encourage you to look at it because you can see how the tongue regulates the flow of the milk. We want to see that tongue elevate, stabilize that nipple, and I can't do it because my thumb doesn't quite move that way, but we want to see the tongue elevate, stabilize the nipple, and the bolus of milk move down the throat. So if your baby, what we really want to see is a nice wave movement. If your baby's doing more of this, then you're going to see a different movement in that jaw, in that mouth, the cheeks and the throat, down the neck. So have a look and see, is your baby doing more of a chomp? Are they doing this kind of thing with their jaw, more of an up-down movement instead of that roll? There is a really great swallowing video on Facebook. Lucy Weber, I think, has a great video where she compares the nutritive suck swallows and non-nutritive suck swallows, and it's really, really helpful because it can show you what the different kinds look like. We want some kind of non-nutritive sucking. It's really, really beneficial for that little nervous system. It helps to get bubs out of that fight, flight, freeze. So some degree of non-nutritive sucking is good. But we want to make sure that we've got the nutritive swallows as well, the nutritive sucking. And we want to see that they move through a series of different stages. So they do the fast little fluttery sucks to get that milk flow going. And then they move in and they might be doing big rolls down their throat. And they might speed up, and then as the milk comes, they will slow down and regulate that flow, and then go back, and they might do suck, swallow, suck, swallow, rest. And they'll have a little rest, and that's okay. It doesn't mean they're going to sleep. It doesn't mean they're lazy. It just means they're having a rest. We let them have that rest. Ideally, we want that baby to stay on that side until they want to come off. It's honestly just like you're in the kitchen having your dinner. Somebody walks in and pulls the plate out. They go, you've had enough time. We wouldn't do that to our partners, so we wouldn't like it if somebody did it to us. We really want that little bub to work out when they have had enough. They will get, and that's really great, because when you let them say, yes, I'm done, then you can build that confidence in, yes, I know they have finished the side, can change their nappy and offer the other side. And if they don't want it, that's it. Bedtime. Wrap them up into bed, depending on their age, obviously. But if you start off that way, then you're not going to be there going, I don't know, they could be hungry. I'm really not sure. I'm not sure how long they went for. You know, every feed is different. That's the other thing I want to say, actually. Every feed is different. So don't worry too much if one feed is 20 minutes and one feed is 6 minutes. If they're getting those wet nappies, those 6 to 10 wet nappies a day, and you are getting really good at watching those swallows, you're watching that suck swallow, you're watching that routine, that pattern of some really fast sucks and some really slow where they're getting that fatty milk, then you can be confident that yes, my baby's got the wet nappies. Look at their behavior after a feed. Look at their behavior before a feed. Really get to start to read your baby's cues, and you can build your confidence so that you don't question yourself. Every single feed is an opportunity to get some more information. Don't worry if you miss a cue, or if you go, oh my God, they're actually really overtired now. It will pass, they will sleep. Wrap them up, keep them nice and close. And remember, feed so you can sleep, and sleep so you can feed. Now, if things are not going the way you want them to go, and you're getting whistling or a clicking noise when you're feeding, and baby's gaining weight really well, and everybody says, don't worry about it, it's fine. But you know, in the back of your head, you're really just not sure. Talk to somebody. Get them to have a look. That clicking often means that the tongue is not maintaining contact with the nipple, and it's snapping back down. So when you're breastfeeding, it's not just about sticking the tongue out. That's what most people talk about, but that's only one part of the process. What we want is we want the tongue to extend out over that bottom gum, protrude and elongate. We want it to stabilize the nipple. So when the baby takes the nipple into their mouth, they need to be able to cup the nipple and stabilize it up against their palate. They need to be able to lateralize, move their tongue side to side, and they need to be able to release that milk down into down the throat. So we're looking for four functions of that tongue, not just one. So if somebody said to you, oh, the baby can stick their tongue out, that's great. Or the baby sucks really hard, it's really, really good. That's great that they can do that. However, we want to see that they can do the other things as well. So if you feel that your baby's not doing those things, have a look at their position first. Look at the whole picture. So look and see, so where is my baby positioned in relation to me? Is there a big gap between their chest and my chest? Are they sort of turning their head? Are they angled, their chest angled this way, but their head angled that way, or vice versa? All of those things. Think about yourself when you're eating. You sit straight on. You don't turn your head a little bit to the side. You sit straight on and you lead with your chin. We want the same thing. So before we jump to conclusions and think there's a big problem, have a look at the basics. Check that position. Take them off and try again. Lead with that chin. Stimulate those reflexes. Get that baby's mouth nice and wide, opening up for that nipple and areola. What we want is we want a nice big open mouth. We want bub to be chin in deep, as I said, cheeks equal contact with the breast, and the nose just brushing. That chin is in, driving that stimulation, really moving that breast tissue. We don't want to see the baby moving back and forth on the nipple. We want to see, as I showed you in those pictures, the cheeks, nice contact against that breast. So when the baby's moving and feeding, all we see is a movement of that chin. We see that chin drop and that pause and then that roll down the throat of that milk. You will see different kinds of swallows and different kinds of movement, but you shouldn't see an on-off, or a movement back and forth. Or you shouldn't really see a tugging of the areola or the nipple. So if you're seeing these things, please ask someone for help and keep asking until you get the help that makes you feel like, okay, that makes sense. I get it. So we want to make sure that that seal is effective, so that the lift of the tongue is effective, so that bolus of milk down the throat is effective. And if all of these things are working, then they're not going to be taking in excessive amounts of air, and they're not going to be gulping. They're not going to be coming on and off. They're not going to go on suck, pull off and scream their little heads off. All of these sorts of things, the babies are trying to communicate something to you. So listen. And if you're not sure what they're trying to communicate, ask for help. Tummy time. Tummy time is so very important. I want to mention that just very, very briefly. Tummy time works on the head, the neck, the chest, the core, the whole body. So if you're a little further down the track and you've passed through the first 6-10 weeks of breastfeeding and things have been going really, really well, and then you feel like things are starting to, baby's starting to do some different things. Before you start to worry that it's a problem, look at their age. Is it a developmental leap? Babies can often focus on one thing and other things might drop off a little bit. So give it a few days and see. People get very, very worried about the baby's poos. And I find anything in isolation, whether if they had a bad night's sleep or if they had a bit of a mucousy poo, don't worry. If it's a one-off, it's okay. They're people, they're individuals. These things happen. If you are seeing a consistent pattern of these things that weren't happening before, then that is something to investigate. So you want to start at the basics. Always start with attachment and see, is my baby transferring that milk effectively? Are they stimulating the breast effectively to maintain that milk supply? Because remember, once the milk is established, it switches from a hormone-driven state to a demand-driven. People talk about supply and demand. I like to talk about it the other way, in terms of demand and supply. Because what we want is we want that baby to be requesting that milk so that your breasts fill back up again. The breast is never ever empty, but they can be more full than at other times. And what we want is we want your body to be getting a really good stimulation so that your milk is abundant. If it's not that way, if you're feeling like it was and now it seems like it's really, really dropped, have a look at the stimulation that is being provided, because often it's not about the foods you're eating, it's often about a lack of stimulation. And it might be because the baby's not demanding enough or not demanding often enough. Have a look and see at the whole picture. Look at it over a number of days and a number of feeds, and then see, and if you need help, ask for it. There are lots of different places. There's the ABA. You can ring them. There are some awesome phone counselors on there. They will tell you if they think that you need an IBC or C. There's also the clinic, and there's lots of lactation consultants in there as well. So not everybody is going to fit everybody, and that's okay. But keep looking until you find your village. You know, find that person who, when you're talking to them or when they're talking, you go, yes, I get it, I understand, or that really makes sense. And you know, that's not going to be every person, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that person's not great at what they do. It just means that they're not the right fit for you, or this is not their area of expertise. So I really cannot stress to you enough, if you feel like something isn't right, it's most likely not right. Doesn't mean it's a big problem, but it doesn't mean you should just ignore it. I really, really hope this has been helpful. And I look forward to any questions. I am part of a group called Ready Together that is a free Facebook and Insta group for mums and dads, and I would love to see you there. It's post questions. It's a place where you can ask for help, or find other parents that are going through the same sorts of things. Equally, I'm always happy to answer questions. So let me know. You can find me on Facebook at Motherhood Matters, or find me online. I'm on Insta too.